Today we are talking about Sony systems, Sony mirrorless systems. So we are going to talk about APS-C sensors and all the mirrorless cameras in APS-C lineup. And then later we will talk about full frame cameras. So stay tuned. This will be a long one, but make yourself a coffee, make yourself comfortable, and let's discuss all the available Sony cameras on the market right now. First one on the list is ZV-E10. So if you are thinking to enter photography and videography world, the ZV-E10, because of its price point, is still a great choice. ZV is more directed to vloggers and content creators because it does have like this big and easy to access record button. It also includes some features that are very good for vloggers, like the red rectangle around the screen when you are recording yourself. Of course, you can flip out the screen, you see the recording. The downside of this camera is that it doesn't have image stabilization, only digital image stabilization. It does not also include 10-bit recording internally, so you are stuck with 8-bit, 4K, 30 frames per second, and 1080p, 120 frames per second. But don't be afraid, because those videos are oversampled from 6K. So camera oversamples this, downsizes these images that you record from 6K to 4K. So the image quality is crisp, clear, and very easy to use on any YouTube channel or anything like that, wherever you vlog. The LCD display is okay, but nothing perfect, but enough to see yourself. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money and you want to enter the some filmmaking market, that camera is pretty good. Just remember to buy a couple of batteries for this camera, because it tends to die pretty soon. Next one on the list is, of course, a younger brother and much better brother of ZV-E10, which is ZV-E10 Mark II. And this is a great camera to start with, because now it features all the modern stuff that you would like to have from the camera. So it's 26 megapixel sensor, CMOS sensor. It does feature 4K, 30 frames per second, oversampled from 6K, and it's 10-bit internal recording. So it's 10-bit 4:2, something you can record in S-Log. You don't have to overexpose this S-Log. It's nowadays with S-Log 3, it's very easy to work with flat profiles, so you can just record flat, use for example Sony's official LUTs, and you're good to go, no problems at all. And it all happens eternally. Of course, 4K. You also have full HD, 1080p in 120 frames per second, and all the features you would like for video recording. So this big record button, record indicator around the screen, everything is there. Very, very nice choice. Very small, compact, and lightweight camera. You can use it with image stabilized sensors, not sensors, but with image stabilized lenses, and you are good to go for any vlogging purpose. Next one on the list is a very, very nice camera that I used for a long time myself. It's a Sony A6400. It's a wonderful camera if you want to start your photography adventure. There are things that I still think this makes this camera a great value. First of all, you can buy it cheap nowadays. Second of all, you have very good 24 megapixel images. Dynamic range is very nice on this camera, for APS-C sensor. Low light performance is pretty nice because this 24 megapixels is not too much for APS-C sensor. Autofocus still works pretty nice. It is pretty flawless despite its age. It does have it does have an object tracking function, so something that makes this camera stand out. And it does feature viewfinder, so you can not only you don't have to use, in case of ZV series, only the LCD, but you can also use viewfinder. So this is more of a hybrid camera, and this camera is actually, when it comes to parameters, very similar to ZV-E10 Mark I. So you have 8-bit internal recording, oversampled 6K, so very good quality. And if you want to record something that is more similar to flat profile, I would recommend ALGG profile. It is a good profile for 8-bit sensor on Sony cameras, and you are good to go. It's small, it's lightweight, and same thing as with other cameras so far on the list. If you want to use it for longer extended times, for longer periods, buy more of the battery packs, because it die pretty fast. So with 3 or 4 battery packs, you can easily go to the wedding, and with some nice bright prime lens, you can start your wedding photography business on this camera still without any problem. The next one on the list is the previous flagship from Sony, is Sony A6600. So this is the most advanced camera from the previous generation. So the main features here is that it is image stabilized finally. So the sensor is image stabilized, not only the lens if you use image stabilized, but you have image stabilized sensor, and it does use these professional battery packs called NPFZ100. This is 2280 milliamperes, so it is a capable battery pack that can last for much longer than the previous ones. So those are, to me, one of the most important features here. Of course, you have improved autofocus system with tracking, you have AI autofocus system here. So this is a very good choice if you want to save a little bit of money. You don't need the newest and the best, but you want to have a previous APS-C flagship that still performs very well. That camera comes highly recommended. Now, one of the last but not the last one on the list here in the APS-C section of Sony is Sony A6700, the most advanced APS-C hybrid camera. Hybrid because like it is inside, it does have a sensor that you know from FX30, but FX30 is dedicated to videographers, while this one is dedicated to both videographers and photographers. So you not only have this big battery pack, this and you know FZ100, you know which one I mean, but you also have image stabilized sensor, you have 4K in 10 bits 422, you can plug it into external recorder for even greater quality and greater variety of files. You have OLED XGA display, a very high quality OLED display, because what I didn't mention is that something that connects all Sony cameras, that all Sony cameras have very useful autofocus system, but all Sony cameras from the previous generations had like pretty mediocre displays. This one is not the case anymore, so you have refresh rate on the level of 120 frames per second, so something like a gaming monitor already there. You have a very good CMOS Exmor-R BSI type of sensor, which produces high quality, high resolution, very useful images. So it's a great camera for photographers, and this one is really good if you want to have good JPEGs out of the box, because it produces beautiful images. It also can record full HD up to 240 frames per second, which I didn't say before. And of course 10-bit allows you to work with S-Log and easily treat these videos in post-production. So a very advanced and very good APS-C camera. So if you want something small that performs exceptionally, Sony Sony A6700 is the way to go. Now let's talk about this a video-oriented brother here, which is Sony FX30, and this actually is a professional APS-C video camera. Not only you have this 4K 60 frames per second with crop, unfortunately, but very high quality in 10 bits 422. You have like XLR connectivity here. You have very good CMOS Exmor-R 26 megapixels resolution. So you have a very professional camera here. With if you work with rigs, if you want to attach different accessories to it, then all those possibilities of the screws on the body are something super valuable. So if you work in a team, if you work with bigger rigs, Sony FX30 can be a wonderful secondary camera. Or if you want to enter a world of serious filmmaking and you want to work with FX series of cameras, this is amazing, absolutely amazing, because at this price point you can enter FX type of filming. So you have an access to all the flat profiles and all the professional color profiles that are known from FX Sony cameras. The only downside here, of course, you don't have the viewfinder, but this camera is oriented for videographers, so something to keep in mind. And there's an active cooling, which is very important, so you can record forever in any conditions you like. So if you want to record like 2 hours of video on the desert in full sun, you can absolutely do it with FX30. That comes in a small and nice package. Now in this section, in this video, we will discuss all the Sony cameras, like full-frame Sony cameras that are worth mentioning and are available on the market right now. So which camera is for you? Which one should you pick? If you're up for like full-frame cameras, you will find out right now, and please watch until the very end, because I will discuss all the mirrorless full-frame cameras from Sony system. First one on the list is the one that I have on my here on my desk. It's Sony A7 Mark III. It's a camera that I've been using, I think, the longest in my life. I still love it. I still think it's a great choice, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it is cheap to buy. You can buy it on many promos, and like it's super cheap. It's cheaper than many APS-C sensor cameras out on the market. So it's a still great full-frame performer. Great dynamic range is one of the #1 takeaways for me from this video. So basically, I'm using it for interior and architecture photography because it still is better performer with dynamic range than the A7 Mark IV that is recording me right now. now. So Sony A7 Mark III, great autofocus, great battery life, great dynamic range. It's not as responsive as A7 Mark IV, and unfortunately it can record only 8-bit 420. That's the downside of this camera, but if you're okay with that, if you don't need a lot of post, this can be a still very useful content creation camera. Unfortunately, it doesn't record 10 bits on the external recorder, so to the external recorder, so you're stuck with 8-bit. But this is a good 8-bit, and this 1080p 120 frames per second still offers very good quality. So if you want to mix 4K with full HD, slow motion, you don't want to spend a lot of money, and you want to have the access to an amazing variety of lenses that are available there for Sony E-mount, then Sony A7 III should be very high on your list, and it also performs very well in the darkness. So paired with bright lens, this can be your wedding photography business workhorse. Until now, without any problems. Next on the list is of course A7 Mark IV. This is one of the best hybrid cameras, full frame cameras on the market for wide range of users, for wide audience. So a lot of people can find this camera one of the best hybrid cameras. Now the most important thing to me is that not only it's image stabilized, the autofocus is slightly better, but the most important thing to me is that you have an option of recording 4K 60 frames per second with crop, but still 10-bit 422 internally. Same with 4K 30 frames per second, same with Full HD, 10 bits is available, and you can record even better videos on the external recorder. So this camera gives you some of the modern improvements, and in real life, because this is something that you can read on paper, but in real life this camera is just more responsive than A7 Mark III. The new chip is just faster, it's just more responsive. So if you're looking for something fast that can both record professional grade videos and very good photos, this camera is awesome. The only downside when it comes to in comparison with A7 Mark III, that it has 33 megapixels of resolution, so the dynamic range is a little lower than on this older camera. So if dynamic range is your thing and low light performance is your thing, actually A7 Mark III performs slightly better. It's a small difference, but there's a difference. The other difference between those cameras is that A7 Mark III is only like this, tilt. It has got this tilt display, while Sony A7 Mark IV does have this flippy out thing. So if you want to record yourself, like I am recording myself right now with this camera, then this comes very handy, and the quality of this display is much better. Sony A7R V, this is an interesting camera because R stands for resolution, so this is high resolution hybrid camera from Sony. Main features to me is one of the best autofocus systems on the market, period. So not only it can record 60 megapixels images, which is perfect if you're planning to work in a studio, but it also offers amazing video capabilities. So you have 4K 60 frames per second, 10 bits, and everything you would expect, but you also have a separate chip that is responsible for working with autofocus system that covers 79% of the frame in full frame mode. So not only it covers almost all the frame in full frame, but it also is super responsive, and it can detect different objects like cars, animals, and a lot of things, because it does use AI deep learning algorithm, and it does have a separate dedicated sensor, chip to do that. The sensor performance is very good, but of course if you're looking for something with more dynamic range, not the best choice, or something that performs outstandingly in low light, that's also not the best choice. But this definitely is a great hybrid camera. Next on the list still available is A7C, which is basically a mini version of A7 Mark III. The only differences really is with the screen. So now you have the flippy out screen on A7C. So if you're thinking of content creation, this should be very high on your list. And according to Sony engineers that I met with when this camera was released, it does have improved mechanism of a shutter mechanism. So those are the main differences, but other than that, it's mainly same stuff as A7 Mark III. So if you're looking for something that is more compact and does pack a lot of punch like this camera, then this is a very recommended camera, and now you can buy it cheaper on a lot of promos here and there, maybe even used. So still a very good choice. Now let's talk about the younger brothers of this guy. So A7C Mark II and A7CR. Difficult names to pronounce and long names, but to make it short and sweet, A7C Mark II is a miniature version of A7 Mark IV. So very nice, very nice small hybrid camera. And if you're looking for something to travel with, something that is full frame and something that do not, you know, like limit your creativity there, then A7C Mark II should be high on your list. Then A7CR is a little bigger miniature version of A7R V. So again, we have this deep learning mechanism in deep learning algorithm in this camera. So one of the best performing autofocus systems on the market. You have 4K 60 frames per second in both 10 bits 422. So something that is an amazing feature. Thing that we don't find in A7C in A7CR is the 8K 24 frames per second that we find on A7R Mark V, but 8K is nothing that interests me too much, so I don't care about that too much. So miniature, limitless, practically very good choice for travelers, for those who are looking for a very good body in a small size. We have another interesting camera here on the list, which is Sony ZV-E1. This is almost perfect for vlogging artists, for content creators, because this is basically a vlogging version of A7S III. So you can expect all the features of A7S III, but all the features that you know from ZV-E10, ZV-E10 Mark II. So it's easy to manage, easy to record yourself. There's a fantastic autofocus system here. There's a fantastic display here that will show you this red square that you are recording yourself. So full frame content creation beast it is. So Sony ZV-E1 full frame, no compromises content creation tool. Now the next one on the list is pretty old. It's Sony A7S III, but still one of the best hybrid cameras on the market. And I'm saying it on a purpose because most people view it as a mainly video focused camera, but the raw files, 12 megapixel raw files out of this camera are like made of rubber. You can raise the shadows as much as you want. You can you know, like drop the highlights as much as you want, and raw files images are so good. Dynamic range of this camera is amazing. So if you're into like astrophotography, this should be on the top of your list, because this is still a king of darkness. No kidding, no jokes, this is a king of darkness. So A7S III is a fantastic camera for filmmakers, and it was when it was released many years ago actually, and it still is. You have 4K 120 frames per second in 10 bits 422, so it performs exceptionally. And 12 megapixels may seem small amount of pixels, but this is a perfect 4K camera. So it doesn't pretend to be anything more than that. It's just 4K camera, and it performs very well. So if you're thinking of filming with 12,000 ISO, this is the camera you should definitely take into consideration. I actually tried to do some astrophotography handheld with this camera, which normally completely doesn't work, because like in most cameras it will mix stars with noise. Here you can actually do it. I know most people won't, but you can. I did it just to see how far you can push this guy. In real life, you have 16-bit RAW files. If you use it with external recorder, you will get 16-bit RAW files, 4K 60 frames per second, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So this little guy is a great purchase if you're looking for something not that expensive and still like amazing performer with amazing variety of lenses that you can use with Sony E-mount. So if you're thinking of filmmaking seriously and you can find this this camera on some kind of sale, absolutely no doubt it's a great choice. Sony FX3 is the next one on the list. Is a professional filmmaking tool, and to have FX3 is a wonderful thing for filmmakers, because before, to enter the world of FX, Sony FX, it was very difficult. Now you have all these, you know, screws that you can put in like 1/4 of inch. You have basically a very similar features that you have as A7S III, but you can work with full-sized XLR connectivity here. You have King of Darkness. You can work with huge rigs. You can put it on in your production house. So basically this is a video-oriented beast that has a lot of things in common with A7 Mark III. However, there's one thing that stands out here, which is active cooling. So once again, if you are planning to go to some super hot place in the world and you want to record for 2 hours or 4 hours, you want to work with a team, this camera will practically never overheat. So that's a big feature for a lot of professional filmmakers. Next one is a very special camera. Is Sony A1, is a flagship camera from Sony, and this is a stacked sensor, stacked CMOS sensor with newest sensor, with newest chip Bions XR. So both the chip is very fast and the sensor is very fast. So the effect of rolling shutter is minimal despite its resolution, because this thing does have a very good high resolution when it comes to images. It's 50 megapixels when it comes to images, so it's a high resolution sensor. Despite that fact, it is still like the effect of rolling shutter is very reduced. So if you want to have everything best, Sony A1 is the way to go. It's an expensive camera, but the OLED screen is just completely amazing. 4K 120 frames per second, 10 bit 4:2, completely amazing. 600 megabits per second. So both photography, videography, autofocus performance, battery performance, all the internals and the screen in this camera are phenomenal. I think it's one of the best flagships on the market, and yes, it's not cheap, but if you want the best thing from Sony, I think this thing really performs, and it's just an amazing camera. If you have it in your hand, like on the paper you may think I don't need it, but in real life this camera is a spectacular piece of hardware. Now let's talk about the last one on the list here. It is Sony A9 Mark III. This is a very interesting camera because it does have this global shutter which reduces rolling shutter effect to 0. It does not exist. Rolling shutter is not there basically. So perfect stuff for sport photography and wildlife photography. And if we are talking about that, you can use it with 120 frames per second without rolling shutter effect, no blackouts. It is an amazing piece of camera. Of course, it is a very good filmmaking camera. You can have 10-bit 4K 4:2, 120 frames per second. You can push these raw files to external recorders. So this is a very good photography and filmmaking camera. The only downside, because of this global shutter at this stage of technology advancement, is that you lose on dynamic range. So if you know that dynamic range is something you need, like in interior photography, for example, I would still go with A7 III because it's slow, but it's perfectly tuned for interior and architecture because of its dynamic range. But if sports and fast action or nature, photographing birds is your thing, then a Sony A9 Mark III is an amazing camera. The last one on our list is Sony A1 Mark II. When I was initially recording the video, this camera was not available yet, but it's available right now. And I'll just focus on the main or most important improvements over the A1 Mark I. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say here. So we have new chip that is responsible for AI tracking and AI object detection. So you have now automatic mode, human, animal, bird, insect, car, train, airplane, that can be detected both in still image and movie recording. Now you have real-time tracking and auto-framing system. It is an amazing situation because you can use this camera to track you when you are moving around. The most important, I think the most exciting improvement to me here is this improved in-body image stabilization. So now you have it at the level of 8.5 steps. Or 7.0 steps at the periphery. So basically what it means that Sony is stepping up this image stabilization game, and so far my favorite image stabilization and the best one on the market is in Panasonic systems. So S5 Mark II, S5 Mark II X, this image stabilization there is just insane. Like you can almost forget about gimbal, not necessarily because gimbal gives you different look, different effects, but it is amazing. Now with image stabilization turned to dynamic active, this is what it's called. This image stabilization is very close to this from Panasonic, and it actually performs very well. So this active mode, this is where the most improvement happens, and the jerkiness is not gone, but it's much better here. That you have also like framing stabilizer, and one of the most important things that I'm really hoping that A1 Mark I will get, you have LUT import and monitoring LUT. So basically, if you're filming as S-Log 3, you can use your favorite LUT that you work with and see the final result. Another improvement that is amazing here is this flippy out screen. It's not only flippy out, but it's tilt and shift and everything. You can do whatever you want. You can switch it horizontal, vertical, and I'm really hoping to see exactly this solution in upcoming Sony cameras because this is the best screen system ever. One small improvement here is that LAN cable, input is now 2.5 gigabits per second, which can be important to people that this camera is a lot mainly directed to, which is sport photographers or nature photographers or journalists in general. So if you want to upload your photos faster and be more effective, you have faster LAN connection here. Other than that, both cameras, Sony A1 and Sony A1 Mark II, are amazing cameras, and A1 Mark II is most probably the best camera on the market right now. Okay, guys, this is it. All Sony cameras in one video. This is pretty amazing achievement for me, so I hope you think the same. So if you liked this video, if you enjoyed it, if you find it informative and entertaining, please don't forget to leave thumbs up, comments below, and subscribe. And I see you guys in the next one. Cheers.